All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the March 10th meeting of the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority Board of Trustees. Thank you for joining us. I am Vice Chair Charlie Kenny, and I'm filling in today for our chairman, John Kelly, who is unable to attend today's meeting. Before we start, I want to remind everybody that this meeting is being recorded. Please mute your devices when you are not speaking so we can reduce the background noise. When you are making a motion, please state your name and where you're from so we know who you are. Let's see here. So Denise, would you kindly read the Open Public Meetings Act?
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. This is to advise that in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975, adequate notice of this meeting has been forwarded to the Newark Star Ledger, the Asbury Park Press, the Courier News, the Daily Record, the Home News Tribune, the New Jersey Herald, and posted in the Essex County Hall of Records in Newark.
All right, thank you. Would you call the roll now, please?
Yes. Bergen County.
Present, Joseph Belatti.
Thank you. Essex County.
David Antonio, present.
Thank you. Hudson County.
Good morning, Tom Malavasi, present.
Hunterdon County.
Zach Rich, Hunterdon County, present.
Thank you. Jersey City.
Manzella, present.
Middlesex County.
Charlie Kenny, present.
Monmouth County.
Harry O'Connor, present.
Thank you. Morris County.
Stephen Shaw, present.
City of Newark. The City of Newark. Okay.
I see
Ocean.
Trevor on the call, Denise.
Okay. Ocean County.
I believe Sean from
That's
Ocean
the
County is
chairman.
present.
Okay. Thank you. Passaic County.
John Bartlett, present.
Thank you. Somerset County.
Sarah Sui, present.
Thank you. Sussex County.
Jack Group, present.
Thank you. Union County.
Eddie Jane Kowalski, Union County.
Thank you. Warren County.
Warren County here.
The Governor's Office.
Governor's office here.
Thank you. New Jersey Department of Transportation.
Eric Powers here. Good morning.
Thank you. New Jersey Transit.
Good morning, Jeremy Colangelo, present.
Thank you. Port Authority.
Jay Sheffield here.
Thank you. And Citizens Representative.
I think I saw Charles on the call.
I did.
Can you hear me? Charles Bergen?
Yes.
Yes,
Thank
we have
you.
you, Charles. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Denise, Peter
Yes.
Bustle is here for Bergen as well.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you,
Mr.
Denise.
Beyond, City of Newark here as well. I apologize.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Proceed.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up is the approval of minutes. Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions to the minutes of the January 13th board meeting? I'll take the silence as no. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Morris County will move the minutes.
Union
Thank you.
seconds.
Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. This time I'm going to move on to the chairman's remarks. I'd like now to take this opportunity to present the chair's report. Thank you again for joining us this morning. At our last meeting in January, Chairman Kelly announced that the NJTPA was kicking off public outreach for Connecting Communities, the Long-Range Transportation Plan update. I'm pleased to share that over the past 2 months, about 1,500 people have completed the online survey. The NJTPA has also held virtual events on active transportation and improving access to transit, and a third event is planned for March 25th that will focus on creating vibrant downtowns. The NJTPA is working with the county and city staff to plan April and May pop-up outreach in each of the 15 subregions. The list of events is being finalized and will be shared with the subregions soon. I encourage board members and anyone else who's interested to visit the events and support the NJTPA's efforts to get the public's input on this important plan. And if you haven't already, please take the survey and share it widely with your networks so that we can reach as many people as possible. It closes at the end of the month. I also want to thank Commissioner Shaw for encouraging people to take the survey and participate in the pop-up outreach when he spoke at the recent Morris County Chamber of Commerce event. Working the long-range plan into larger events like this helps engage even more people. In addition, the NJTPA is again partnering with the Voorhees Transportation Center at Rutgers to conduct specialized outreach with harder-to-reach populations. This includes reviving the popular NJTPA on-air multimedia contest for kids and teens to share their ideas about the future of transportation. They can upload drawings, videos, and written submissions, or use the online radio booth to record their visions for the future. To make this activity even more fun and engaging, the NJTPA has a new mascot. I'd like you all to welcome Sammy the Squirrel, who will be visiting libraries and boys and girls clubs in the region to spread the word about our on-air and get input from kids. Up next, North Jersey, the NJTPA Young Adults Advisory Group and the outreach liaisons, members of the community groups who conduct outreach on behalf of the NJTPA, are also helping with public engagement. Staff will be reviewing the input received through all these efforts and incorporating it into the draft long-range plan, which the board will be asked to consider at our September meeting. One thing we've already heard a lot about is the need to improve safety for all travelers, something that has long been a priority for the NJTPA. As you know, 8 subregions are working with the NJTPA to create local safety action plans, which will identify safety needs and strategies for addressing them. The draft plans are being finalized and will be shared later this month. The project team is working with participating counties to schedule a final phase of public outreach in March and April. Warren County has already scheduled an in-person workshop for this Thursday. Some counties will hold virtual workshops, and Hunterdon County is planning to gather feedback through a demonstration project that will highlight a potential safety improvement. The public input gathered through these events will be used to finalize the plans, which will be completed in June. Before I wrap up, I also want to remind you that the NJTPA, I also want to remind you that the New Jersey Department of Transportation, in partnership with the NJTPA, is accepting applications for transportation alternative grants. These funds can be used for things like rails to trails, greenways, and streetscaping. Just to give you some examples of this past funding awards for my home county of Middlesex, Old Bridge received $1.4 million for pedestrian safety improvements at Cottrell Farm Park, and South Amboy was awarded $1 million to create a waterfront commuter trail for cyclists and pedestrians. Anyone interested in applying must schedule a pre-application meeting by April 11th. Additional information about all of these efforts is available on the NJTPA website. That concludes my remarks, or the chairman's remarks. I would like to point out that Melissa posted something in the chat.
Chris.
Just so everybody knows. So at this time, I'm going to ask the NJDOT if they have any remarks this morning.
Good morning. There's just 2 things I'd like to mention. First, the department continues to work on the I-80 sinkhole issue. It was recently declared an emergency to provide the state opportunity to seek federal funds for that. So it would be nice to get those funds, and we're continuing to work on that project. And the second thing is just to acknowledge again that the department has we're leading and participating in the Target Zero Commission. All the MPOs are members there. The goal there is 0 fatalities by 2040. Commission recently had its first public meeting at the NJ Transit headquarters, and that work will continue this year. And we're looking for solutions to really drive the fatalities we see on our roadways down. So a couple significant things going on. And with that, back to you.
Thank you very much. NJ Transit, any remarks from you?
Just one this morning. Good morning, everybody. Was pleased to sort of emphasize, hopefully folks have seen it in the papers, that we have come to a tentative agreement between New Jersey Transit and the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen. So, look, that's looking positive. Definitely appreciate folks' assistance on that. And as Eric mentioned, certainly the issues around traffic fatalities and access to transit is something we're very interested in and continuing to partner with the DOT to work through as well as counties. That's it for me. Back to you.
Thank you very much. Port Authority, any remarks?
No comments from us at this time.
Thank you. At this time, I am going to call on David to kindly present his report to the board.
All right. Good morning, everybody. You can hear me clearly, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, great. Yeah, first, Jeremy, certainly that was good to see that news report this morning about the tentative agreement. Certainly very positive developments for the region. But what I'd like to start this morning is I'd like to discuss some recent shifts in federal policy and their effects on our work at the NJTPA. First, I think most significantly, I want to note that based on federal guidance as well as discussions with our national organizations, the Association of Metropolitan Planning Organizations and the National Association of Regional Councils, we did make some changes to the draft fiscal year 2026 Unified Planning Work Program, or UPWP, that is before the board today. These are largely changes in description and emphasis that don't fundamentally alter the nature of the tasks, the overall program, or the budget, which the board, RTAC, and others reviewed and commented on prior to the Planning and Economic Development Committee's advisory vote last month. These late changes were made to comply with recent presidential executive orders, and they do affect some aspects of the work program. One example is the removal of references to environmental justice. Per federal guidance, environmental justice screening, which was instituted under a previous and now rescinded executive order, is no longer required for federally funded projects. Now, of course, we're still going to strive to ensure that our work meets the transportation-related needs of all the communities in our region, and we will, as always, make sure our work fully complies with Title VI of the 1964 Civil Rights Act and other federal non-discrimination statutes. Related to all this, over the past few weeks, we've been on a bit of a roller coaster when it comes to potential changes in federal approval processes. As you very well may recall, on January 27th, the administration announced that reimbursement for federally funded programs would be frozen. This certainly presented a potential challenge for our operations, which are funded through NJIT, which is then reimbursed by the Federal Highway Administration. And really hundreds of other organizations and agencies around the country face similar dilemmas when this news broke. Thankfully, after many institutions across the country, including state DOTs and many MPOs, raised concerns about the potential impacts, this policy was quickly reversed. And as of now, reimbursements are occurring normally. Similarly, on February 26th, we were informed that all planning approvals normally done by the FHWA state division offices would be shifted to the Office of the Secretary in Washington, and that this change could add weeks or even months to the approval of key documents, and that would include our Unified Planning Work Program. And once again, that policy was quickly reversed, and the very next day, maybe a little more than 24 hours later, we were informed that the planning level approvals would be conducted normally through the division office. And this is really critical, particularly given the timing of this vote on our work program, as we just really can't afford significant delays in approval that could threaten to put us in a position where we did not have funding and proper accounts set up and in place when the new fiscal year begins on July 1st. And I should note that this would have potentially affected not only NJTPA central staff operations, but also the pass-through programs that put critical federal funds to work for the subregions and the transportation management associations. So in the end, I'm grateful that despite these bumps in the road, today we stand ready to approve the fiscal year 2026 UPWP, and that, at least for the time being, federal approval processes are the same as they have been in years past. And this is going to allow all of us to keep doing the important work we're doing to improve people's lives through transportation planning and investment. As I said at the Joint Committee meeting in February, Regardless of these policy shifts, the NJTPA and other MPOs around the country continue to play a vital role. We apply federal funds cost effectively to our region's most pressing needs under the leadership of this board. And I will certainly continue to report on any further guidance or direction we receive from the federal government and any impact it may have on our work. With that, I'll turn for a little bit to central staff activities. As the vice chair mentioned, safety continues to be a high priority in all our work. As Eric mentioned, the Target Zero Commission has commenced its work. Last week, I was pleased to be at that initial public meeting of the commission. As I believe you know, the commission is seeking to eliminate traffic deaths and serious injuries in New Jersey by 2040. It's composed of representatives of multiple agencies, extending beyond transportation to include health, community affairs, and others. With input from the public and key advocacy groups, the commission will create data-driven safety strategies that can be implemented at all levels of government across the state to drive down fatalities and injuries. NJTPA is very proud to contribute to this effort. There are significant safety programs, including our current development of local safety action plans, as was mentioned by Commissioner Kenny, hundreds of Street Smart New Jersey campaigns we've had, and the many projects that have been implemented through our local safety and high-risk rural roads programs. These programs go hand in hand with the technical assistance we offer for complete streets planning and other similar programs to better integrate all modes of travel in many of our region's communities. And I should note there's often a real synergy across these various safety efforts. For example, March 13th and 18th, Warren County is holding public meetings jointly for their Complete Streets Implementation Plan, which is being funded through our Subregional Studies program, as well as their Local Safety Action Plan. And I want to mention another safety strategy, which is expanding infrastructure for safe walking and biking. And to advance this, we've launched an online tool that shows routes and corridors identified in our active transportation plan that, if upgraded, could expand walking and biking. You can find a link to that tool on our website. Just a couple more things before I wrap up. I should note that along with the central staff highlights emailed to the board and RTAC on Friday, we also distributed an updated Board of Trustees handbook. That includes contact information for all board and RTAC members, an overview of the NJTPA and its functions, our bylaws, and a lot of other useful information. And then finally, I want to remind everyone that the annual transaction conference will be held April 15th through 17th in Atlantic City. NJTPA is hosting sessions on the long-range transportation plan, local safety action plans, our municipal programs, and I'll also be participating in a roundtable discussion with my two fellow New Jersey MPO executive directors. Just in case you haven't heard me go on long enough this morning, I know this was a long report. I appreciate your patience. And our staff will be participating in other panels as well, and we'll have our booth as we typically do. So with that, you can visit njtransaction.com for more information. And I'll conclude my report. Thanks very much.
Thank you, David. At this time, we're going to go to our feature presentation, which is an update on federal policy and legislation from Jessica Monahan. Ms. Monahan is a senior principal at Cousins O'Connor Strategies and is presenting on behalf of the National Association of Regional Councils, where she serves as the group's federal policy advocate. With more than 15 years of experience, she's provided strategic advice on legislative and regulatory matters, public policy proposals, legislative drafting, advocacy campaigns, coalition building, and political strategies across various sectors such as transportation, arts and humanities, technology, and energy, among others. And so I just want to say thank you, Jessica, for signing up to do this on short notice. It's greatly appreciated. And at this time, I am going to turn the show over to you.
Well, thank you for having me. I hope everyone can hear me clearly. It's always
We can hear you.
best on Monday mornings, whether or not technology will cooperate. So good, glad to hear that. Well, as the introduction alluded, I am representing the National Association of Regional Councils. I serve as an outside contracted lobbyist to NARC, but also interestingly enough, my background, although that bio seemed extensive, I'd actually served as the Transportation Policy Director at the National Association of Counties earlier in my career. So these issues are near and dear to my heart. I really have a sympathy for everything that state DOTs and MPOs are enduring right now in these very unusual times. And David said it really well that, we've been on a bit of a roller coaster, to say the least, in the last 45 days since this administration started. And I've been asked to provide sort of two updates. One is a little bit of an overview of what's happening in Washington and the federal policy landscape, which I know David did a really good job kind of walking us through the history of the last 45 days. And then two, talking about how that impacts, but more specifically, the process for reauthorization. So on the executive action side and everything that's been going on in Washington, D.C. for the last 45 days, I would say it's unprecedented disruption. And that's not a partisan statement. That's just insight from someone who's been working across many administrations, Democrats and Republicans, throughout their career. Never seen anything quite like it. We've seen everything from, again, executive orders that then get held up in the courts or challenged in the courts. And that leaves MPOs in particular, but any agency or entity that has a formal relationship with the federal government, particularly through federal funding streams, in a bit of confusion or state of chaos. I will say on the onset, before I continue to elaborate on that chaos, that I think it's really important that people take a deep breath, and to the extent it's possible, remain calm during these moments. I think it's important to be proactive about advocating for your interests and protecting your interests as different executive actions, whether they be a reduction in force to federal employees that impact your programs and your work with agencies at the federal level, or announcements that funding that you had been awarded but not obligated may no longer be available to you, whatever that is, whatever is causing the chaos, to know that, be proactive but not overreactive. And David and I have had these conversations, and it seems like New Jersey TPA is well on its way to kind of taking a smart and strategic approach to how it interprets and responds to the moment in which we are in. So the biggest and I think most impactful change that we've seen in how this administration is operating compared to previous administrations, but even compared to Trump 45, is that we have these dramatic shifts in both domestic and foreign policy occurring without a ton of notice. It's happening immediately in real time without a ton of preparation by Congress or even opportunity to respond before these actions take effect. And then, of course, a lot of court challenges that then leave MPOs or any other organization engaged with the federal government scratching their head as to how to comply. That the pace at which things are changing certainly makes it hard for someone like myself to give sound advice, since day to day it changes. But again, I go back and reiterate my point to take a deep breath and know that you are not alone. That might not be comforting when you have things such as grant awards up in the air, or even just your operating budget called into question, and whether or not you need to potentially lay off staff or readjust budgets. But I have advised generally that when you are receiving guidance from an agency, it is in your best interest to comply, particularly because MPOs are vulnerable to needing, of course, to rely on federal funding, but also to have a positive and productive relationships with federal highways and USDOT. So again, we've kind of created this very unusual moment in Washington, D.C., and by we, I mean this administration. And we've seen not just bipartisan concern, but also bipartisan pushback from members of Congress on the Hill. And that is particularly because this administration is really challenging presidential authority right now and seeing how far they can push executive actions to actually, in a way, legislate or repeal, rescind law, ignore law, and in many ways to challenge the U.S. Constitution in Article 1, which grants Congress the authority to have power of the purse. So it's one of the things that we've seen that's been very concerning is the either retooling or rescinding of federal funding that's been appropriated or authorized by Congress or awarded by the previous administration. We've never seen this happen so rapidly without any warning or opportunity for input from the legislative branch of the federal government. The best advice I can give is how to navigate these moments besides taking a deep breath is to remain very much engaged with your congressional delegation. That might seem sort of flippant on my end to suggest, but we have seen that actually pay off in real time. For example, the process of SIP-TIP approval changes having been funneled through the general counsel's office at Federal Highways, and then that shifting back to the more typical way of operating, that shift both towards something that was going to be problematic and then reverting back to the status quo. That happened because there was significant input provided to Capitol Hill and to the administration from a wide variety of stakeholders, and that change is just an example of how engagement and communication with your delegation and also with the agencies in which you are relying upon can have a direct impact on a lot of these changes that are happening. And some of these dynamics are created by the fact that we have this new entity called the Department of Government Efficiency really driving a lot of the changes at the federal level. They're in a way and intentionally disconnected from the agencies in which they are trying to affect change. So for everyone's benefit, you have Elon Musk as sort of this figurehead of that effort. And then within every department of the executive branch, there is at least one DOGE representative who's there to sort of drive and implement the efforts of DOGE and their priorities, which includes things like retooling federal programs, looking for ways to recapture, rescind unobligated balances, scrubbing of certain terminologies that don't align with the priorities of this administration, which David alluded to earlier. And that's created some conflict and tension that we're seeing play out in real time between the cabinet officials who've been put in those positions to really help drive and affect change on behalf of this administration, along with the influence of the DOGE effort. And because of that, we're even seeing the Secretary of Transportation really push back about what level and extent of authority DOGE has when actually implementing change within the department. Because as you might imagine, you get into the Department of Transportation, start pulling back those layers and realize very quickly that things aren't as simple as you might think from the outside, especially if you've never worked directly with that department or agency before. So let's put all the chaos aside, but know that that's sort of the atmosphere in which we are approaching and entering into the reauthorization process, which certainly doesn't make things easy. So that's one challenge I would highlight as far as reauthorization is concerned. But for everyone's awareness, which I'm sure all of you are aware, given the line of work you are in, the IIJA, or Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, is set to expire in September 2026. And this Congress, the 119th Congress, is undertaking the effort to reauthorize surface transportation programs. Now, IIJA was a very large bill, this like grand infrastructure bill that had things including surface transportation reauthorization, but things outside the scope of a normal reauthorization bill, including a ton of discretionary grant programs for broadband infrastructure, airport infrastructure. It went well beyond the scope of what we traditionally deal with reauthorization, which for many local governments in particular was a welcome shift and change. Now, that was intentionally done in a time where we were spending our way out of a pandemic. We were trying to bring more money back into communities. We were trying to address a backlog of infrastructure across a broader definition of infrastructure. We were, kind of on this pathway of COVID relief packages. Anyway, it was a big bill. Now, that was never intended to be the new precedent to repeat in subsequent years. So the authorizing committees are having to go through this exercise of looking at IIJA, how do we shrink it back to a scope of work that is more traditional in nature? And we're seeing that effort underway in real time, but also seeing this sort of space be left for the administration to provide its own input, whether that be to really drive direction on which programs they would like to see cut, what projects they may want to support, whether or not they even want to continue with congressionally directed spending in the next bill, which is currently up for debate right now in the continuing resolution that Congress is considering this week with the federal funding deadline coming up on March 14th. But this sort of what's in, what's out exercise is very much a top of mind for the authorizing committees. The House T&I committee is proceeding on a bipartisan basis, which is very much the tone that the committee has set with the FAA bill that passed last year, and just generally the ways of working between Ranking Member Larson and Chairman Grace. So they're continuing with that sort of approach and protocol and camaraderie, which is great. The majority and minority staff are actively seeking input from stakeholder organizations such as NARC and AMPO, and recently the AMPO, NARC, NACO, NLC, and NATO all sat before the T&I majority and minority staff and provided insight as to priorities for their organizations for the reauthorization process. The committee has said that they are going to open up a portal this spring for input from members of the committee and members of the House at large to put forth their priorities of which they would like to see in the reauthorization process. Now, the T&I committee, the process that they have established is one where there's going to be a lot of debate and collaboration before the bill even comes to markup in committee. They like to manage the process the best way they can before opening it up for real debate in the committee itself. That's not to say that there won't be amendments put forth, but a lot of those amendments are pre-negotiated, and where there are sticking points, they try to minimize their disruption in the progress of the process. And on the EPW side, we have now Republicans in the majority in the Senate, and Chairwoman Capito is going to be driving this process, but she is not new to the committee by any means. She has worked very closely with her Democratic colleagues on past bills, and we expect that process to continue. The new ranking member of the EPW committee, since Senator Carper is retired, is Sheldon Whitehouse from Rhode Island. He, I think, admittedly, is a climate hawk. He is very progressive when it comes to climate policies, and we're going to have to wait and see how some of his more progressive ideals might play out in the negotiation process and the bipartisanship that we hope to see in the Senate as well. Other sticking points that I'd highlight for everyone for reauthorization is we still have that elephant in the room of the gas tax in the Highway Trust Fund. As I'm sure you all know, the gas tax hasn't been raised since 1993. I used to give this speech when I was at NACO and say, it's been 20 years. Well, 10 years plus later, it's been over 30 years since we've increased the gas tax, and it was never indexed to inflation, which means that 18.4 cents per gallon that was established in 1993 has lost 56% of its purchasing power since that time. And at the same time, we are facing unprecedented inflation and, of course, the threats of tariffs from countries that supply a lot of the materials that we use to do a significant amount of our roadway infrastructure. We're also seeing the diminishing value of the Highway Trust Fund associated with
Jessica, I think we lost you. Looks like you're frozen.
You can hear? You're frozen?
Oh,
What can you do? Maybe turn your video off again if you can hear. Okay. Well, we'll shoot Jessica an email and let her know what happened.
All right, you just want to give it a minute here while we wait to see if she's able to get back on?
Yeah, we could wait a minute longer, yeah.
I just sent her a message in chat, but it looks like she may have had to log off and log back on.
Yeah, she did just jump
Yeah.
off, so hopefully
Okay.
she's just hopping off and hopping back on.
All right,
Okay.
let's give her a minute. So
I'm back on. If you guys can see me now,
you're there.
You're
We
back.
hear you.
I'm not sure what happened. Again, Monday mornings.
Yeah. You're moving, which you weren't for a moment. You were
Yeah,
frozen.
you were
I like to move, so hopefully I can figure out where I lost.
You were talking about the gas tax not having been raised since 1993.
Yeah, so
And the
that is a
tariffs.
change that it's less of a barrier for reauthorization than it had been in years past, just because we've become increasingly more comfortable with transferring money from the general fund of the Treasury to the Highway Trust Fund to make up for those gaps in funding. Now, we are certainly in a different environment than we had been previously when it comes to fiscal policy, especially with the new administration. But we'll see if the Ways and Means Committee can undertake the effort of changing the structure of the Highway Trust Fund and hopefully capturing the impact that electric vehicles are having on the diminishing value of the gas tax as well. So those are really the big challenges we see for reauthorization. Now, NARC as an association, I want to make sure I highlight this, has established a set of priorities for the reauthorization process on behalf of its members, including MPOs, RTPOs, COGS, and more. And first is to enhance metropolitan planning funding. And of course, we want to see an increase in PL funding, but also have suggested to committees either reducing or eliminating local match requirements to help. If we're not going to be increasing the pie significantly, how can we stretch those dollars further and make a greater impact locally? Promote non-metropolitan planning. This is obviously more targeted at the RTPOs who are members of NARC, but also I think very valuable to enhancing and increasing the local voice in the federal program. Third priority is support local decision-making through formula programs, and this is really targeted at continuing and enhancing the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program, which we all know has the sub-allocation process that MPOs have a significant role in determining how those federal dollars get spent, and then preserve discretionary grant program. And this comes to that tension point that I had tried to highlight earlier. Hopefully you heard me talking about the size and scope of the program or of IIJA, that it was huge bill with all of these new discretionary grant programs. And then how do we make sure that, and this is not a dig at New Jersey DOT or even ASHTO, but how do we ensure that not all the federal dollars are going out by formula to state DOTs, but instead are also providing an opportunity for local governments and even MPOs to become direct recipients or continue to be direct recipients of critical federal funding. So with that, I'll pause, but I do want to make the pitch that while these are unprecedented and oftentimes dark moments in our federal policy landscape, I think whether we're talking about reauthorization or reacting to executive actions, the most important thing that you all as members of the MPO or the MPO itself can do is to tell your story, to really focus on the value that you provide to your communities, to the federal government, and to the federal program, making sure that new people that are in these agencies and departments understand the value that you provide, the role that you're playing, and continuing to stay connected with your congressional delegation so that they can help support you in real time is going to be important, because while a lot of these efforts by DOJ are being challenged in the courts, and effectively so, Congress is going to, at least the Republicans in Congress, are going to attempt to codify these cuts and changes that are being implemented by DOJ right now. They're going to try to codify them by law in the next budget process. So with that, I will pause, and if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to take them. Again, sorry for the technical difficulties this morning, but again, appreciate being here.
Yes, no, thank you. Ted, do we have any questions?
Commissioner, not seeing any at this time.
All right, I'll see if the board members have questions. All right. Judging by the quietness, you've done a great job, Jessica.
Hard to have questions when there's so much uncertainty, but please, if there's anything that anyone thinks of in the future, feel free to reach out. I'll drop my email into chat.
Thank you very much. And thank you again for on short notice participating in our meeting today and giving us that update. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Jessica.
All right. We'll be moving on to committee reports and action items. So I'm going to ask Commissioner Rich, who filled in for me at the last month's meeting, to give the Project Prioritization Committee report. Commissioner Rich.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm pleased to report on the activities of the Project Prioritization Committee at the February 18th Joint Committee meeting. The committee considered 2 action items that require board approval today. The first item for approval is a minor amendment to the fiscal year 2024-2027 Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP, to add the low emissions intermodal trucks for healthy Newark communities project in Essex County. Approval of this minor amendment will allow the $3.8 million project to advance with $2.2 million in federal grant funds. The project involves the replacement of 20 diesel trucks with low emission propane trucks to improve air quality at the port, while modernizing infrastructure and strengthening supply chains. The second item for approval is a minor amendment to the TIP to add the Sayreville Waterfront Multimodal Transportation Improvement Project in Middlesex County. Approval of this item will add a $1.3 million grant from the Federal Transit Administration to the TIP for a planning study. The project will study the feasibility of creating a multimodal transportation connectivity between isolated parcels in the Sayreville Waterfront redevelopment area and the South Amboy Transit Station and Ferry Terminal. This concludes the Project Prioritization Committee report. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you very much. So at this time, we are going to have 2 action items from the committee's report. So the first is a minor amendment to the TIP to add the low emissions intermodal trucks for Healthy Newark Communities project in Essex County. And I understand Essex County would like to make the motion.
Yes, Essex moves.
Thank you very much. Hudson, would you like the second?
Yes, Hudson would like the second.
Thank you. Any comments from the board members on this item? Ted, are there any comments in the chat or from the members of the public on this item?
All clear at this time, Commissioner.
All right, thank you very much. Denise, would you kindly call the roll?
Yes, sir. Just want to take a minute and ask all of our voting members to please go ahead and unmute themselves. Thank you. Bergen County,
Yes.
Essex County,
Yes.
Hudson County,
Yes.
Hunterdon County,
Yes.
Jersey City,
Yes.
Middlesex County,
Yes.
Monmouth County,
Yes.
Morris County,
Yes.
City of Newark, City of Newark. You're muted.
Yes.
Okay. Ocean County, Ocean County, Passaic County,
Yes.
Somerset County,
Yes.
Sussex County,
Yes.
Union County,
Yes.
Warren County,
Yes.
Governor's Office,
Yes.
Department of Transportation,
Yes.
NJ Transit,
Yes.
Port Authority,
Yes.
Citizens Representative.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Motion passes, sorry.
Thank you, Denise.
Mhm.
So the second item is a minor amendment to the TIP to add the Sayreville Waterfront Multimodal Transportation Improvement Project in Middlesex County. Understand Union County would like to make a motion.
Yes, I make the motion, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Morris, would you
Eh.
second?
And Morris will second.
Thank you very much. Any comments from the board members on this item? Ted, any comments in the chats from members of the public on this item?
Not seeing anything at this time, Commissioner.
All right. Denise, would you please take the roll?
Yes, Bergen County,
Yes.
Essex County,
Yes.
Hudson County,
Yes.
Hunterdon County,
Yes.
Jersey City,
Yes.
Middlesex County,
Yes.
Monmouth County,
Yes.
Morris County,
Yes.
City of Newark.
Yes.
Thank you. Ocean County. Okay. Passaic County,
Yes.
Somerset County,
Yes.
Sussex County,
Yes.
Union County,
yes,
Warren County,
Yes.
the Governor's Office,
Yes.
New Jersey, the Department of Transportation,
Yes.
New Jersey Transit,
Yes.
Port Authority,
Yes.
Citizens Representative.
Yes.
The item passes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Denise. At this time, we're going to go to the Planning and Economic Development Committee, and we'll hear from Commissioner Jason Sarneski, who's going to give the report.
Thank you,
Commissioner
Mr.
Sarneski.
Chairman. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm pleased to report on the activities of the Planning and Economic Development Committee's February meeting. The committee considered one action item that is before the board today. Approval of the fiscal year 2026 Unified Planning Work Program, or UPWP. The draft was initially issued as December 2024 for review. Comments from the board, sub-regional partners, federal sponsors, and NJTPA were reviewed and incorporated into the work program and budget. As Dave mentioned in his report, central staff made changes to the wording of some tasks, activities to comply with the recent executive orders. The revised draft was shared earlier this month. The board must approve the work program in order for the NJTPA to receive federal funding for staff, sub-regional, and Transportation Management Association activities to be conducted in the fiscal year that begins July 1st. Central staff recommends the approval of this item. The meeting also featured a presentation by Darius Solahub, a professor at NJIT's School of Architecture, on the Newark Airport City project, which seeks to enhance connections between Newark Liberty International Airport and the Dayton neighborhood in the city's South Ward. The project is a collaborative effort between the City of Newark, multiple agencies, universities, and community groups. It seeks to foster transit-oriented development, including new hotels and commercial space, and bring a significant new hub for economic activity to Newark. A new Lionsgate movie studio is already planned for the area. The NJTPA is playing a role through the funding we approved last fall for planning and implementation of this worthy project, and this work will continue in the UPWP before the board today. This concludes the Planning and Economic Development Committee report. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. As Commissioner Sarneski said, we have one item before us today, and that is an action item from the planning on today's agenda, the approval of the fiscal 2026 Unified Planning Work Program. And I understand the City of Newark would like to move this item.
City of Newark would like to move it.
Thank you very much. Sussex, would you second?
Sussex County will second.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments from the board members on this item? All right, Ted, are there any comments in the chat from members of the public on this item?
Not at the moment, Commissioner.
All right, then Denise, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Bergen County,
Yes.
Essex County,
Yes.
Hudson County,
Yes.
Hunterdon County,
Yes.
Jersey City,
Yes.
Middlesex County,
Yes.
Monmouth County,
Yes.
Morris County,
Yes.
City of Newark.
Yes.
Thank you. Passaic County,
Yes.
Somerset County,
Yes.
Sussex County,
Yes.
Union County,
yes,
Warren County,
Yes.
Governor's Office,
Yes.
Department of Transportation,
Yes.
New Jersey Transit,
Yes.
Port Authority,
Yes.
Citizens Representative,
Yes.
and the item passes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you to Newark and Sussex for moving and seconding that. At this time, we're going to do the freight initiatives. Next, we'll hear from Commissioner Stephen Shaw, who will give the Freight Initiatives Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm pleased to report on the February 18th Freight Initiatives Committee meeting. Central staff provided an update on two ongoing activities. The 2050 Freight Industry Level Forecast Update is on track for completion in June, with a few remaining tasks underway, including outreach to the subregions. Also, public involvement plans are being developed and data is being collected for 3 studies in the FY 2025 Freight Concept Development Program. Our meeting featured two speakers who provided updates on the industrial real estate market. First up was Bill Waxman, Vice Chair of Cushman & Wakefield. He reported that the vacancy rate for warehouse space was up in 2024, reflecting a softening in demand for older, less efficient buildings. Meanwhile, asking prices rose, buoyed by new construction and demand for more efficient buildings. This demand for quality was focused on smaller buildings, less than 50,000 square feet, rather than buildings with 500,000 square feet or more. Some of those large buildings are being broken into smaller units. He predicts fewer new buildings by 2026, creating upward pressure on pricing as the state remains a good location for warehousing and industrial uses. The committee also heard from Ryan Conklin, Assistant Director of Warren County's Planning Department, on actions the county has taken to manage warehouse development and associated traffic. He reported that Warren County identified areas along major roads such as 517 and 519 that were hot spots for crashes. About 10% of the crashes involved trucks. In response, the county completed a comprehensive master plan that included a truck routing map, and it supports municipalities in improving wayfinding signage and routing through agreements with developers. The county also has a complete street study underway as part of the NJTPA Sub-Regional Studies Program, which is looking to address local truck impacts. In reports from committee members, NJDOT said it is finalizing data analysis for its truck parking study, including identifying unmet parking needs, undesignated parking trends, and crash clusters involving trucks. Port Authority reported that the recently released 2024 port volumes showed continued growth, reaching 8.7 million 20-foot equivalent units, or TEUs, handled during the year. Last year was the port's third busiest, beyond only the pandemic-driven totals of 2021 and 2022. Middlesex County reported they are working with central staff on their two freight concept development studies. The third study underway this year is in my home county of Morris. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Shaw. At this time, we're going to move to the public portion of the meeting. As a reminder, we advise members of the public that we have a 3-minute time limit on comments, and we'll display a timer on the screen. We ask that you keep your comments within this allotted time. We'll start with members of the public who have signed up in advance to speak, and then we'll call on anyone else who would like to provide comments. So, Ted, who do we have signed up?
Commissioner Kennedy, I checked a few moments ago. We have no one signed up in advance to make public comments.
Okay, then we'll move on to, does anybody from the public, would they like to make a comment? Doesn't look like it, Ted?
No, sir, I believe we're all clear.
All right. So at this time, we're going to be coming to a close as soon as I get my screen set up here correctly. So thank you everyone for your comments and your participation in today's meeting. The board's next meeting will be held at the NJTPA office in Newark on May 12th at 10:30 a.m. So at this time, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
Morris moves to adjourn.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
Port Authority seconds.
Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.